working on that. We have the tablets and we're training field sanitarians and kind of working on the technology side of that. So hopefully that'll be up and running within the next 6 months. There's a new solicitation of quotations going out that Julie's going to talk about as part of her discussion. Clarifying requirements for expansion pools on the driveways. We're currently working with the Office of Wastewater Management to train staff on that and add a stamp or note as suggested. And then there was a question about clarifying the process for approved plans to be released to contractors as appropriate through Excel. And so I really just wanted to clarify in that one that there is a mechanism right now. And so that mechanism basically is that the plans, must be authorized for release to contractors by the property owners. They have that authorization to do it. They're the ones, it's their projects. And they have that authorization after the plans have been released to the design professional. So that, generally those plans historically go to the design professional first, and then the homeowners will get them and or have the ability to request a design professional to send them to the contractors. But that's really the process that's in place right now, and has generally been pretty effective. And the process is in place for a reason, in terms of just protecting homeowners and it's their confidential information and protecting the design professionals as well. So I know I ran through that pretty quick, and that was just so we can get to any industry questions or comments, as well as get to some of our other more exciting updates that we have coming up for some of our other programs. But really just wanted to open the floor again right now, just to pause for a moment and see if anybody has any questions or comments on some of the things that we talked about last time. If they've seen anything, if there's any questions on what's working or what's not working, feel free to let us know right now.
I have a question.
Sure.
And I was
Adriana, could you just identify yourself for the benefit of folks who are on the phone?
Sure, it's Adriana with Direct Drainage. My question is about the failing systems, and I apologize, but my phone was cutting in and out a little bit when you guys were talking about it. I believe you were mentioning something about updating rules for people with actual imminent danger, like collapsed pools with holes in their yard. Is that what you were referring to, versus somebody that just has a block cesspool that's looking to upgrade?
Absolutely, Adriana. Yep, we've kind of revamped our entire scoring process for the septic improvement program to address that exact issue, and that's what Julie is going to dive into some detail in a little bit.
Right, due in large part to industry concerns.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. I was one of those concerns because I've had quite a few of those, and these people are, waiting months to get approval, even though they have a score of 100. There's so many people in the queue with quote unquote failed systems that it just bumps these people back, and they're waiting and waiting.
That's the reason for the change.
And
Cesspool can qualify as catastrophic. It's really important, especially like for installers that are out there looking at it and know that this danger is in place. I mean, there's only so many steps that we can take to protect the homeowner. If God forbid something happens, I don't want to see anybody get hurt and or lawsuits come down, because these people are being told directly that they cannot install anything.
Yeah, point taken, Adriana.
So, that's kind of really is putting everybody in a little bit of a position.
Yeah,
to make a safe situation.
Not to interrupt you, but yeah, we heard that loud and clear. The department went back and we've made changes to the process in order to give higher priority to those types of situations. We think that's going to be helpful, and it's in direct response to some of the concerns expressed by the industry. If there are additional suggestions, we welcome those as well.
Okay, and how long do we know how long until those changes are actually in place and moving forward, or?
They're effective right now. So if there's any, the one thing I was going to add, if there are any catastrophic failures that you know about, that particular projects, specific projects, feel free to follow up with us afterwards directly, Adriana, because we think we're in pretty good shape on our end in terms of having those grants issued out right now. But if there's any specific ones, again, feel free to follow up with Julia or myself afterwards to talk about them. But yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I do have one in particular right now that I'm thinking of. So I will follow up with her tomorrow. Thank you.
Sounds good.
I have a question as well. It's Alicia. I work with Zachary Clanahan Architect's office. I'm one of the designers. We've been finding lately that it's been harder and harder to locate neighboring wells. And we just wondered, like, if the county reviewer has access to this information, is it possible for us to somehow have access to this as well, just to speed up the process of finding out after a fact that there's a well we didn't know about?
So is this, I guess in my mind, maybe two different scenarios. One scenario would be kind of the failing system scenario that goes through the expedited process through SHIP. Then kind of like the conventional scenario where it's a regular, permit application that comes in for a full review with wastewater management. Were you thinking of one or two of those scenarios, both of those scenarios?
I think for the most part, it's the traditional method where it's getting a full review. We just find even that surveyors aren't willing to put that information on anymore because they're having a hard time finding out neighboring well locations.
So I think
This is Walt. Mac Ravina is a sanitarian who oversees the program, who's probably most familiar with the procedures. I know wastewater does try and help people out in finding proximate infrastructure when we have access to it. Matt, are you able to comment on this for us?
I just wanted to add that if an applicant is coming through the SIP portal, then we can do an expedited FOIL request for that property and surrounding lots. If an email is sent to the Office of Ecology, our septic demo at suffolkcountyny.gov email address, we were able to expedite a FOIL for information surrounding that lot and surrounding lots, including private well locations.
Cool, that's really helpful. Is that only for catastrophic, you said, or for any
No.
SIP?
Okay. SIP, the grant program has that
Perfect.
benefit, yes.
Okay, that's helpful.
Applicant.
I see Matt is unmuted. Matt, is there anything else that you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, you guys able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Matt, we can barely hear you.
Yeah, Matt, you're a little faint right now.
How about this? Any better?
Good.
Perfect.
Okay. Yeah. So we would generally expedite for grant jobs. You can put the request in through Brenda over here, and she will usually get to it within a couple of days if it's for a grant with an IA. If it's again with a grant, usually I would be able to process one of those too if you really have some kind of emergency situation. We'd still need you to fill out the FOIL form, but we can, instead of waiting for a grant, a FOIL number, we can just kind of process it as an emergency for those. We don't always have well records, but we'll definitely be able to check it. And if you want to give me a call, I could always look and let you know if it looks like we'll probably have records or if, we're probably not going to.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
anything else? Any other thoughts? Initial thoughts or recommendations? I don't see any other hands up. So if not,
Keep moving.
we're moving on. So next, Julia is going to give an update on our septic improvement program and related revisions to the rules and regulations based on some industry feedback that we received at the last meeting.
All right. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks for that. I'll be speaking about the Suffolk County Septic Improvement Program grant program, as well as our partner grant, the New York State Septic System Replacement Program. Feel free to interrupt me with any questions or comments in between. So just a recap of the SIP and SSRP programs that we house here in Suffolk County Health Services. The Suffolk County SIP was implemented in July of 2017, and the New York State SSRP program began in October 2018. And since then, Suffolk County has invested over $21 million in grant funding for this program to be allocated for homeowners. And New York State has invested over $20 million to go along with our SIP program. To date, we have 2,867 applications received to this program. It's a very popular program, as you all well know. And we have over 1,500 grants awarded to homeowners and over 1,400 state grants awarded. The first one had to do with the county SIP grant. And so a lot of times those grants are issued in conjunction with each other to the same property owner if they're eligible for both, and that way they can receive the full amounts for each and combine them for their IA installation costs. And sometimes if a property owner is not eligible for a county grant, they will elect to go forward with a New York State only grant. And to date, we have over 900 grant funded IA upgrades that have been paid out to their approved contractor and installed and completed, updating existing sanitary systems, cesspools, septic tanks that do nothing to reduce the nitrogen pollution problem we have here in Suffolk County. And that is equivalent to nearly $9 million paid out, with over 15 million of our grant funding allocated to property owners so far, and over $8 million as well for the state SSRP program have been paid out as well. And of that state funding, we have allocated over $13 million to grant awardees, those property owners. So if the grant funding has been allocated but not yet paid out, that means that property owner is in the process of moving forward with their IA installation and they have a grant ready to be used. This grant funding, the state and the county combined, substantially funds the cost of typical IA upgrades, except for the 2,500 engineering costs. We do have a pilot program to cover those engineering and design services for low to moderate income applicants to our program. But all of our other grant funding is directly for the installation costs. And I also just wanted to mention that this funding, in conjunction with the towns of Southampton, East Hampton, and Shelter Island, their grant programs, this funding enables Suffolk County to implement the upgrades of sanitary systems in accordance with the timeline recommended in the Subwatersheds Wastewater Plan in order to achieve our nitrogen reduction goals. So just wanted to recap where we have been over the past year or so. It's been a good year since back in 2021, back in June 2020, all of the grant funding that we had initially allocated to our SIP and state program, county SIP and state SSRP programs, were fully allocated to grant awardees, showing how popular and important these grant programs were. And during that time, limited funds were available, but we were able to issue some grants to people that were in need. And during that time, we also received over 700 new applications. But back in May 2021, this year, additional 10 million in county SIP and the second round of a 5-round program of New York State SSRP funds, an additional 10 million was made available to Suffolk County. And so we were able to restart our grant issuance on a weekly basis back in May 17th, 2021. And since then, 301 county SIP grants have been issued and 347 New York State SSRP grants have been issued as well. Good news is backlog has already been reduced due to the implementation of these new revised rules and regulations, which I will mention and give you more details on. Notably, the catastrophic failures with public health or safety risks are all being handled immediately. Once we have a complete application from a property owner where that has been deemed a catastrophic failure, we are able to issue that grant to them immediately. All non-catastrophic failures are being issued in date order, and that is regardless of their property location. That is one other major change we made with the revised rules and regulations. We are currently issuing grants right now for complete SIP applications with documented failure. It can be non-catastrophic failure. I just want to clarify that, as long as it's documented. Those applicants that we're issuing right now have an application submission date of fall 2021. And so the backlog is nearly fully reduced at this point. And additional program enhancements that we implemented to expedite grant issuance and IA installations overall includes updating our SIP rules and regulations, temporary reassignment of staff to our SIP program here, hiring of additional staff, and outreach to grant awardees that already have grants and determining if they're going to be moving forward with their installation. As of this month, we have sufficient funds to issue an additional 500 county SIP grants and 650 New York State SSRP grants, which will likely be through mid-2022. So in regard to those revised rules and regulations we keep mentioning, here are the summary of what we did. That we prioritized grant issuance for public health and safety concerns. In order to do that, we modified the grant application scoring and we added definitions for what a catastrophic failure and a non-catastrophic failure are. In addition, we updated our priority area maps using the mapping that was prepared for the subwatersheds wastewater plan, which is more current and relevant. And we also added in a priority area for properties that are within a drinking water protection area. So the revised rules and regulations are intended to expedite grant issuance for homeowners with failed sanitary systems and to establish priority areas for that protection of drinking water. These revisions are currently in effect, and we are working with the Department of IT to update our online application and website to make these revisions implemented on an automatic basis. Those of you that are familiar with our septic improvement program, this is what the scoring that you're used to seeing. This is a previous SIP grant application scoring where applications with documented failure receive either a score of 80, 90, or 100. And that is if they have documented failure, and then depending on the property, the location property, if they are in priority area 1, 2, or no priority. And then following them would be scores of applicants with no failure, and then within priority area. However, based on feedback we received from our stakeholders, we implemented a new scoring system. A score of 100 would represent that that applicant has a documented catastrophic failure, as we have defined it, and that is regardless of the property location. A documented catastrophic failure is the same no matter where they're located here in Suffolk County, and we need to address them immediately based on that. And so now we're able to do that. A score of 90 represents that that applicant is a documented non-catastrophic failure, however, not dependent on the location of the property within Suffolk County. And then scores of 80, 70, or 60 are for applicants that have no failing sanitary system, but they are in priority order based on where that property is located within Suffolk County in accordance with our priority area maps, which we updated. So here are the definitions that we've added into the revised rules and regulations. A catastrophic failure, I'll just quickly go through this, is an existing on-site sewage disposal system that is a structural failure, such as a collapsed cesspool or leaching structure, which prohibits the sanitary system from accepting sewage from the residents and which cannot be corrected by having the system pumped by a contractor, and which represents an immediate public health threat or safety concern based on the information provided by that applicant. And so these are the examples that I believe you, Adriana, were mentioning before, that these can be pulled out to the top And those are the only applicants that will have a score of 100.
Yes, great.
And then following that, a score of 90 is a non-catastrophic failure, an existing on-site sewage disposal system that has documented proof of having to be pumped 2 or more times a year, wastewater backing up into the dwelling, which cannot be determined as a catastrophic failure, wastewater rising to the surface of the ground over or near any part of the existing system, or being a blocked cesspool without any evidence of immediate public health threat or safety concern, based on the information provided by that grant application. And so our updated online application will be able to recognize when an application comes through under either of these scenarios moving forward. And we'll be able to automatically score that applicant in accordance with that.
And Julia, just jumping in real quick. But we are currently doing that manually, right? So
Yes.
this is in effect right now. It's just the online portal, which is going to make our life easier. Will be updated shortly.
Mm-hmm. And also applicants that have non-failure, as you can see from the scoring, applicants that have non-catastrophic failure, they are issued based on date order. So it's no longer based on location, it's date order. And so we're able to catch up with those applicants that had a lower score because of their property location, but they still have a failure, a documented non-catastrophic failure. And so we're getting through all of those applications, and now we're becoming more current with applications being submitted for non-catastrophic failures and issuing grants to them. Here are just a few examples of catastrophic failures, documented catastrophic failures that we received from some of our stakeholders here today that in the past we may not have been able to issue grants immediately to them because of our scoring system. However, now we no longer have to wait on that. Makes sense, right? And the other change that we did make to the SIP rules and regulations is in regard to the priority area maps. And so the existing priority area maps, pre-existing priority area maps were based on a map prepared in 2015 for the Suffolk County Comprehensive Water Resource Management Plan. And now we have updated maps that were prepared in 2020 for the Suffolk County Subwatersheds Wastewater Plan. And we've added in groundwater priority areas in order to protect drinking water sources. Here's the picture of the previous map where the areas shaded in dark purple were priority area 1, followed with areas in the lighter shade of purple were priority area 2, and anywhere else with the shade of gray, beige, was considered no priority. You'll see here, this is our newer priority area map. The surface water contributing areas in pink and green are essentially very similar. They follow the coastline. They have to do with how far away that property is, their groundwater travel time to that surface water body. These are based on maps that went through, reviewed through the Subwatersheds Wastewater Management Plan. However, there are some new colors on this map, the Christmas colors, as you may say, the green and red. For example, out here on Shelter Island, some areas out on the North Fork throughout Suffolk County, some large areas in the South Fork. Those are areas where people rely on the drinking water sources right underneath their feet, a lot of private wells around there. And it is a priority to protect that water source as well. So this area shown in red is now also priority area 1, where it may have previously been no priority. And the areas shown in this lime green here are priority area 2, equivalent to the priority area 2 for the surface waters. So that new map will be part of our new online application for when applicants apply, and we're able to implement this new priority area map. So that is the summary of the revised rules and regulations. Just wanted to go over a few other SIP related items. So just a reminder that in addition to having an active liquid waste license from Suffolk County Department of Consumer Affairs, with that endorsement 10, in order to install an IA system in Suffolk County, installers must also be on the SIP approved vendor list in order for that homeowner that has received a SIP grant to be utilizing that installer. And so in order to get on that list, there is a solicitation of quotes process that once every 2 years, you submit required documents to us in order to be reviewed and as approved vendor. The 2022 SOQ is coming up, as the current list of approved vendors we have right now and a current pricing we have will expire at the end of this year. And so the new SOQ that it will be posted to the Suffolk County purchasing website. And I will also be sending out a link to all liquid waste license holders with endorsement 10 with a link to that SOQ. And we will be having a non-mandatory proposers conference via Zoom at the end of this month, at the end of November 30th, in addition to having that already available as of this Friday. And SOQ submissions will begin to be accepted the day following that proposers conference, December 1st. As I mentioned, the existing SIP approved vendor list expires on December 31st of 2021. And the new list will be posted in the new year. Just a reminder that the December 31st is not a deadline. It is the time when our existing list expires, and submissions to the SOQ and approved vendor list are accepted throughout almost the 2-year process until October 27, 2023. But if you wanted to be on that list that we provide to our grant awardees and homeowners to take a look at starting in the new year, please submit your SOQ prior to that so we can include you on that list. Our SOQ is a 2-year SOQ where we have allowed you to show the pricing for year 2022 as well as year 2023. And then when the year 2023 comes around, we reach back out and confirm if you're continuing to use those 2023 numbers or if you have a change to those price quotes. So be on the lookout for that new SOQ to be posted later this week and our proposers conference at the end of November. And also just a reminder regarding how the SIP and New York State SSRP grants are paid out. Usually these grants are paid out directly to the installers, the people that are on this call here today. So in order for us to issue the payment, we need a few things. Here they are. Here's a summary of them. I'll just go through them pretty quickly. An itemized invoice based on the pricing in your SOQ with the invoice number and installation date, the reference number for the permit that was received from wastewater, the cost of pumping and decommissioning, as well as that O&M agreement and sales tax. That's because those 3 items are not included as eligible costs for that New York State grant. And so we need to make sure the New York State grant is not paying for those items. The payment vouchers are needed with original signatures, 1 for each grant. So if that homeowner has received both the county SIP and the New York State SSRP grants, we will have to use 2 different vouchers. If you need any vouchers, please contact our office. We have many extras here. You can submit them with your invoices, or you can submit them all at once and we'll keep them on file here. We will also need the final installation paperwork to prove that the installation occurred. These forms are the same forms that you also submit to the Office of Wastewater Management. Just run through them. The WWM 078, the certification of sewage disposal system by installer with a sketch. The WWM 080, certification of sewage disposal system abandonment. That's because our grants are only for systems that are being replaced with an IA. WWM 304, homeowner registration form, and the signed O&M agreement with the O&M provider. In addition, if the installation occurred through a SHIP portal approval, then we will also need that WWM 073 design professional certification. So please submit these items, the invoice, the vouchers, and the final installation paperwork all together at once to the Office of Ecology for grant payment, in addition to the normal submission to the Office of Wastewater Management. And that way we can begin processing that payment to you. And we can only begin processing that payment once we have all of that documentation in place. SIP checks are usually mailed 2 to 3 weeks after a complete submission is made. And the New York State SSRP checks are approximately 3 to 5 weeks because they are every other week. And just a little snapshot of some of the information we're gathering to include on our updated reclaimourwater.info website is that industry contact and input page where we are welcoming any questions, comments, concerns, or suggestions, as well as showing who to contact for what situation. Because here in the Office of Ecology, we house the grant programs, but we work very closely with the Office of Wastewater Management, which administers the SSRP portal, as well as residential and commercial permit applications to install sanitary systems. So this type of information will be available online, and we'll also be sending out this PowerPoint after this meeting so that this is the readily available information. You can contact us based on this emails and phone numbers here. And also just wanted to mention that that SSRP portal where contractors register to upgrade existing cesspools to sanitary systems, including IAs, that is available to contact staff here 7 days a week, including weekends, 8 to 4. There's a dedicated phone number line I bolded here on this slide that you can directly receive the staff that are on the SSRP portal that day. And then there's a dedicated SSRP portal website where you actually go ahead and install, register to update that existing sanitary system. Are there any specific questions or concerns regarding SIP or SSRP or anything else particular to that before we move on to other items on the agenda?
I have a question.
Yes.
The priority map, is there any way to maybe possibly make that interactive where you can plop in an address and it brings you to that priority zone? Because trying to zoom into the current map that was on the Reclaim Our Water site, sometimes it's very hard to figure out where they are, you know, like if they're close, you know, not every street is shown on the map.
Yeah, it's hard to get that detail on the PDF that's on the website. And so on our online application, that is a request that we're putting in, that on the application, when you're finding out what priority area you're in, you can toggle it on and off and see where the priority areas are.
Okay, bye.
So that's definitely, I agree with that comment, and we are trying to get that to happen for us.
Yeah, that would be super helpful, especially when you're trying to guide these homeowners that have no clue what's going on and they don't even understand what you're talking about. So you try and, you know, help them out, and it's just time consuming to try and figure out and pinpoint where they live and so on and so forth.
Right now, we have the ability to check that at any point in time. So feel free to contact us directly just to, you know, here's a few sites I went to. Can you just let me know, you know, what the priority areas are? We can check that for you as well.
Okay, thank you.
Julie, I have a question as well.
Okay. That Alicia again, or Kristen?
Could you just identify yourself so that we know who?
Sure. This is Kristen from Ken Roussel Inc. I know we went over all of the failures and the time frame. You guys are currently talking fall catch up right now, and you're almost caught up. Is there any time frame on regular systems that are not failures as far as getting grants? Just because we have to giving these homeowners zero information and they're waiting. If they're just not going to get a grant because there's so many emergency systems, I feel as though these homeowners need to know because they need to have a direction. But this on hold thing, it just doesn't seem to work for a lot of these projects.
Right. Well, as I mentioned, we are nearing completion of those applicants that we received. We're catching up essentially on applications so that they're more current. And we do need to issue grants to applicants with a higher score, and that's based on failure and non-failure. And so we are soon able to, we believe likely in the new year timeframe, be able to begin issuing grants to non-failures based on the date that they applied and their score. So if they're in a priority area.
Okay, thank you.
And those will be going back in time because there was several months where, you know, over a year that we were not able to issue grants to non-failures due to our priority of capturing people that are in a failure situation and being able to upgrade that system to an IA.
Okay.
Julia, this is Pete with Hydro Action. I just wanted to ask for the submission of the materials for the grants. Is there any discussion of doing that online? Like, I know like we can all submit our tax documents online, but instead of having people mail them, would having an online portal so they could upload, like if they've only got 4 out of the however many documents, they could at least upload the 4, you know, and then keep track of it so they'd know what they're missing and all that kind of stuff.
Like a homeowner can apply for a grant?
Well, just any, like whoever is submitting the completed packet, is there an online portal for that?
Oh, to get paid for the grant?
Right. So like if somebody's unsure of, hey, how am I missing everything? Is it complete? Would like a checklist of, hey, I've got, you know, checklist for these 3 items, but I'm still missing these other 3 items, you know,
Right.
so I know where I'm at.
As far as grant payments, we receive them here, and then as soon as we receive them, we reach back out to that installer and say, you know, we need this, and follow up with them regularly if we're still outstanding documents to that installer. That is interesting, you know, idea of having a portal for those contractors. We do need original signatures on some of these documents, but that is definitely an interesting suggestion about having a little grant payment portal where they could check the status of payments. We do have regular ways to communicate with our installers on the approved list on the status of payments. So we have that in place, but maybe eventually we can evolve into something a little bit more cohesive. Not yet.
Got it. Got it. So it's just not online. It's not possible to do it through online submission.
For grant payments, no, it's not online. We can receive emailed copies of some of these items. But essentially what we do see installers do is once the job is complete, they completed all their final paperwork. They essentially make a packet saying, you know, all right, I want to get paid for this job. Here is the voucher, here's the invoice, and all my final paperwork, submitting it to the Office of Ecology to get paid. It seems to work for installers in that way right now, but
I have a quick question. Nicole from East End Excavating. Just to piggyback on Kristen's question, if say a homeowner were to call today and they want to apply for the grant, so it's a regular non-catastrophic failure, non-emergency. If they were to apply now, you're saying that their grants could possibly be approved in early January, February? Should they expect to wait, you know, 2 to 3 months at this point?
Actually, there are many applicants currently in the queue that have that score associated with a non-failure in a priority area that we will be issuing grants to them first. So during that time of limited funds, we receive many new applications, and we would be issuing to the applicants essentially that applied during that time, 2020 timeframe first. As long as their application is complete, we will, it's because it's a date-based.
Understood. So if they apply now, then they can expect it sometime, assuming, you know, once that backlog is caught up in early spring.
I could tell you yet, but that definitely, once that backlog is caught up, and we'll be able to continue updating this group on where we are with that as we continue to issue grants on a weekly basis and keep moving grants out the door. We can keep everyone updated on that.
I have a quick question on that same subject. You mentioned going back to 2020. I have people that are in the queue, non-failure back from 2019, still waiting for grant money.
Yes, we are
So
aware of
It's right.
people that are in that time.
You're
frame as
going
well.
right back. You're going back to the beginning, right? When
Yes.
you start issuing those non-failure. Okay, just to make sure that we weren't
We
starting.
didn't
at
forget about
2020.
anybody. Nope.
Okay, I have people patiently waiting. So, okay,
Appreciate that.
thanks.
I have a question, Julia. It's Danielle from Quackenbush Cesspools.
Hi, Danielle.
On the same, how are you? On the same topic. Perhaps, is there a way to know what number people are in that list? Like, for example, they've applied their applications in your number 154 in the non-catastrophic failure category, or, you know, something along those lines that would maybe help us to guide our clients.
Well, something that we are looking to do with updating our online application is making it a little bit more stringent on applicants submitting all the required documentation, because unfortunately, many of the applications we receive here are incomplete. And that's fine. You know, we have staff that reaches out to them and we try to receive that complete application. And so essentially, we have many people in the queue that are there, you know, we have them, we're ready for them when they become complete and their date is set because that's when they submitted application. But moving forward, making sure all the required documents are in place when an applicant applies, that makes it fair for everybody else in the queue. And that would be able to much easier narrow down where you are on the list, because at any point, an application could be complete and that may shift where somebody is in the list. So it is date based, and we do have required documents, as you all know, and we're looking to try to streamline the application process so that homeowners submit a complete application only when it's actually complete and have that documented proof of failure and all the other required documents that we need in order to issue a grant to them. So we can't quite have that number in the queue because it seems to be always changing based on when an application is submitted. But I think we'll be able to narrow that down going forward when we have a better grasp on making sure everyone's applications are complete when they come to us.
I'll just add, it's an interesting concept and thought that we can keep in our mind, and just as we move forward with website updates and, you know, we're working closely with IT, we can see what, you know, as things evolve, what they think, and, you know, down the road, if there's some way for them to come up with something, you know, that would be helpful, but I'll just throw that in there.
Okay, so we'll be here, you know, for the rest of the night, but we're just going to continue on with a few other items that we wanted to discuss this afternoon. Jennifer Fries from our office here in Office of Ecology at the Health Services will give us an update on IA systems here in Suffolk County.
Unmute first. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Julia. Yep, just a few slides to talk about how our systems as a whole, our different technologies are doing here in Suffolk County. So we will start with looking at the trends that we're seeing in how many applications we're receiving over in wastewater management. So these numbers that we have here are looking at of our Office of Wastewater Management, how many applications for IAs have been received by month starting July 1st, which is when our Article 6 changes went into effect. And then also how many permits have been issued each month. So you can see these numbers that we have here. These are in line with historical data that we see. So we're not seeing any slowdown for sure of applications coming through the Office of Wastewater Management for systems. The major change being obviously that they are going more towards the IA side as they are now required in most situations for new construction and any major construction for residential and commercial. We are working right now on improving our database and continuing development on our database. So with that, we're looking to continue to track trends that we're seeing and basically looking to better understand how different variables can impact installations and hopefully be able to better forecast what the future holds for us based on applications that we're receiving and installations that we're seeing going in. And in addition to Julia mentioned before that we've been doing outreach to SIP applicants, basically to ask them to confirm their project status and if they have any ideas of installation dates, and that's also to better forecast how many we can expect to be seeing installed in the near future. Okay, you can move on to the next slide. Currently, we have 6 provisionally approved systems here in Suffolk County, most of which you guys all probably know. FujiClean, Norweco Hydrokinetic, Norweco Singular TNT, Septic Star, Orenco Advantix AX20 and the Orenco Advantix AXRT. There are also other systems that can be installed in Suffolk County under our experimental and pilot approval phases. And the link here at the bottom would give you information to look at any of those. Like I said, you can get in contact with the local distributors or national distributors of those and see if maybe you want to get involved with installing some of our lesser known systems that can be installed here in Suffolk County and begin working through their approval process. All right, you can go to the next slide. So the other big news is as of October of this year, we have our first general use system, which you guys probably noticed was missing from our last slide. Hydro Action did receive their approval in October with a total nitrogen concentration average of 11.1 milligrams per liter during the provisional use phase sampling. So that's a big mark for us here, our first general use system. We expect to be seeing another coming up soon. So Fuji will be coming up soon, probably late in this year. That's when they will have enough samples to be into the same category. But as of now, Hydro Action is our first system, so kudos to them, and we're excited to have our first general use. Here we can see, you guys have probably all seen this slide a few times. This is data as of 10/15/2021. The cumulative bi-monthly sampling results for provisionally approved IAs. You can see our Hydro Action. This was before they had their last few samples in. So now, like I said, they have their last few. They're at general use approval. We're at 11.2 in the mid-October, and then they got their last few samples in down to 11.1. Fuji Clean was sitting at 10.7 milligrams per liter. Septic Star is at 14.5 milligrams per liter. Orenco AX20, 18.4 milligrams per liter of total nitrogen, still staying under the 19. And Norweco Hydrokinetic was at 17.9 milligrams per liter total nitrogen. The Norweco Singular TNT is at 22.9 milligrams per liter as of 10/15, and Orenco AXRT at 26.6 milligrams per liter total nitrogen. That does put Norweco Singular TNT and Orenco AXRT into minor violation here in Suffolk County. So we've been working with them on remedial action plans to improve their performance and get under that 19 milligrams per liter mark that we require here. You can also see at the top.
Jennifer.
Sure.
It's Bob with Clear River. Do you know what your average influent nitrogen is?
We usually use the standard 65 milligrams per liter, which is based off sewage treatment plant standards for Office of Wastewater Management. But we know that from doing some sampling here early on that most of Suffolk County, we would expect the average to be much higher than that.
Right, somewhere in the 80s, maybe even more.
Yep. It's pretty common for us to pull back 100 milligrams per liter. So these systems are doing amazing. We know that the standard here is 19 milligrams per liter. There's obviously been talk in the past of wanting to, use a percentage reduction as opposed to that 19, but 19 is what we're sticking with for now.
Thanks, Jennifer.
No problem. You can see at the top here, we have the cumulative average. This is for all technologies kind of put together for each year that we've gone through this program. So 2017, you can see we're at 25.9 milligrams per liter with 4 technologies approved, and down till now, we're at in 2021, so far we're at 15.7 milligrams per liter for 7 technologies approved. Basically, all we're saying here is that the more data we get, the lower this number gets. We're showing that these things are working, and we want to keep them moving forward. And that's what our changes in July 1st of this year help us to do. Move on to the next slide. We also do want to remind everyone that the July 1st Article 6 changes do require IAs for commercial use as well, in the same way, so new commercial buildings or major renovations. We have a really good grasp on residential use for these systems right now. There is more potential for needing some variation in design for commercial systems. So we do want to encourage everyone to reach out to manufacturers and local distributors for training when they're designing and installing these systems. We do just want to let everyone know that Fuji Clean has presented a design manual specifically for Suffolk County for commercial use. that is now available, and you can reach out to Advanced Wastewater Solutions. The contact information is at the bottom of this slide. They are also giving out training locally, so please reach out to them if you're interested in training. And like I said, we want all manufacturers, distributors to be working on these same kind of design manuals for commercial applications if they feel like they have special needs or specific things that might help their systems operate better on commercial and different commercial variables. Move on to the next slide. Here we have some upcoming online training opportunities for November and December. So you can see here we have one coming up tomorrow. So if anyone is in need of some training credits, you can go get in contact with New England On-Site Wastewater Training Center at URI and talk to them about getting involved in some of these trainings. We have one coming up tomorrow for 8 credits, and then 3 in December for 4 credits each, and then an 8-credit one. We'll have their contact information on another slide or 2 coming up. And speaking of credits, we did speak with the Department of Consumer Affairs, and they have permitted us to give out 2 training credit hours for this meeting today. So in order to receive your certificate, please email septicdemo@suffolkcountiny.gov. We'll need your full name, company name, and liquid waste license number to give those credits. Next slide. We have some training contacts here. So for Suffolk County Septic Industry Licensing, Matt Sariola with Department Labor Licensing and Consumer Affairs. For septic industry training classes, you can reach out to Julia Priolo here in the Office of Ecology. And this is the information for New England On-Site Wastewater Training Center, who will be giving out those 4 training classes that we mentioned before. And there's their website for if you want to go and log on and register for those. Next slide. So this is just a little reminder, shout out that the Article 6 cesspool phase out, also known as our SHIP portal here, we are looking to do increased enforcement for those regulations. We're going to be doing training here at the department to all DEQ sanitarian staff to identify possible illegal sanitary system installations and constructions when in the field. So that would go beyond just our Office of Wastewater Management sanitarians who are out on a daily basis. We have, a whole team of other sanitarians, and this would allow us to survey areas, bigger areas, more space, and potentially find more illegal sanitary system installation and construction activities. DHS is also looking to hire additional sanitarians to provide enforcement support after those sites have been found. And we will be sending out an industry letter to contractors, re-outlining SHIP requirements when you have to go on the SHIP portal. We want to always make sure that people are aware of those requirements. And if there's any other recommendations, please feel free to send those along to us. We will be continuing to educate contractors. Every contractor training is going to include SHIP requirements and information on when and how to register construction for under SHIP. All right. Any questions or comments on any of that?
Jen, I just wanted to quickly mention related to SHIP as well, something that Julia mentioned before, that we're just working with IT right now to update that contact page that we have on our Reclaim Our Water website. So that website is also going to include contact information for SHIP, but also a link to another SHIP page that just talks about the SHIP process, a little some educational material for the SHIP process, how that process intertwines with the Septic Improvement Program grant. So just stay tuned. I would say before our next quarterly meeting, hopefully in February of next year, that should be that new portal should be new page should be up and running. So just wanted to put that out there.
Julia and Ken, a question. Bob at Clear River. I didn't see any like new systems coming in. The last time or two, I think you guys have said, who's approved and coming in. Has that changed or? You know,
Like,
for instance.
under
parental
pilot program.
Say it again.
We have technologies approved under experimental and pilot program phase right now, experimental and pilot phase. And so, yeah, we didn't have all the names of those technologies that are currently in that. We can send that out with the PowerPoint afterwards to this group as a reminder of all the different technologies that are approved for use here in Suffolk County.
That'd be great. Thank you.
There was a link at the bottom of one of the slides that I think I mentioned that real quick. So there's the link to our website where you can see that whole list of all the ones that are under pilot approval right now and yeah, can be installed.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Hearing no other questions at this time, we will move on to a few other items that we want to discuss today. Ken will be discussing the Article 19 standards revisions that are proposed at this time.
Thank you, Julia. Just bear with me here. All right. Share my screen. All right, we should be good. So yeah, so we have some proposed changes to our Article 19 standards for innovative alternative systems. Two major topics that we want to address in this recent current update. One is on the enforcement side, and how do we make sure that we get new registrations, updated registrations, and/or O&M contracts from homeowners that have expiring O&M contracts and registrations. And number two is to spell out a new quality control sampling program that the Department of Health Services will be implementing. So, so first off, just wanted to discuss this interim strategy for expiring O&M contracts and registrations. So why now? Why do we need something? As most folks on this meeting know, that the initial installation of an innovative alternative system comes with a 3-year O&M contract. Now, as we look back to the number of installations in Suffolk County over the past 5 or 6 years, we can kind of see that we see a big jump in installations occur in 2018 and 2019. So that means that we're going to see a surge of expiring O&M contracts and registrations over the next 12 months or so. So the other aspects of this is that we want to make this as simple as possible for homeowners, to make sure that we get the information that we need and to make sure that these systems are maintained. Everybody knows that the homeowners have a lot going on, competing priorities in life, and this may or may not be one of them, right? So right now, Article 19 puts the responsibility of providing the updated registration on the homeowner. While it suggests and says that a homeowner has to have an O&M contract, there's no explicit requirement for submitting that contract to our office to know that it exists. Ultimately, this process is going to be streamlined and automated through our online database and portal. A lot of the folks on this call are probably familiar with the new Excella platform, the new online application portal. That same portal is pretty powerful. Is going to allow us on a back end to automate enforcement. So we're going to implement an interim strategy that's more of a manual process for the next 6 to 12 months or so. But so wanted to touch base on the interim proposed approach here. So first off, we want to revise our Article 19 standards, again, to minimize homeowner responsibility, just to make sure that just to make sure that we are successful in maximizing, making sure that the O&M contracts are being renewed, as well as getting these new registrations. So what we thought the most streamlined way to do this was, one, to set a requirement for O&M providers to submit a copy of the annual O&M contract to the department once it's executed. And that can just be, for now, again, that can be manual, and it will be sent to Jen and her department under the RME. And then in terms of registrations, so the registration, for folks that aren't familiar with it, is, I think right now it's a one-page form. It's important because it outlines, some of the obligations that the homeowner has for their system to make sure that it is operated and operated properly and performs properly. So what we were thinking was the most streamlined way to get a copy of that registration form updated would be to just add it as an attachment to O&M contracts. The homeowner is going to have to go into an O&M contract anyway. It's going to have to read, whatever materials are in there, part of the O&M contract. If this is an attachment, essentially the requirements for the registration is essentially one more signature on the O&M contract on the back end. And then when that O&M contract is submitted to the department, then we have both. We kill two birds with one stone. We have the O&M, we have proof of the O&M contract, and we have the updated registration form. So, that was our initial proposal for this, to make sure that we are getting these as efficiently as possible. There'll be additional information coming out on it once it's finalized. Part of that, this whole process is going to be education and notification to O&M providers and homeowners, right? So once the standards are approved, the revised standards are approved, then we'll go ahead and send out notification letters to initial notification letters to homeowners, letting them know that their registration and maintenance contract is expired or near expiring, what their obligations are. It's going to be a friendly letter, just making sure that they know that the time has come to get a new O&M contract. Similar, but just a more informational letter will be sent out to all the O&M providers that we have. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention for the initial homeowner notification was that will also include a link to and a list of the current licensed O&M providers for each of the technologies, just so they have easy access to it. And then again, then we're also going to send a letter with information with the new requirement to all of the liquid waste professionals that are performing O&M out there as well, and give an example of the registration form that should be included in the contract. And then, after 60 days, if we don't receive anything from the homeowners, or we don't receive the contract, or if there's a problem, then we would have a follow-up letter go to homeowners that, the language would be a little more, it'll probably still be friendly, but it'll be a little bit more stern in terms of their requirements and, possible implications of what happens if, we don't receive an O&M contract. So that language to be determined. The first thing we really want to do is set these new standards in place, get them rolling, collect data on, the level of compliance that we see for these O&M contracts. And, if the level of compliance is pretty good, perhaps the letters will have a little bit of a different tone than the follow-up letters to the homeowners than if it's poor compliance. So we want to, through this process with the industry, we are encouraging everyone to let us know if they're having any trouble. I know some of the folks on this meeting have already been proactive about it and letting us know, hey, we've been trying to reach out to this homeowner for the last 3-6 months and they're just ignoring us. That kind of information, feedback we want to hear. We'll keep that list as well, and we can use that list for these homeowner notifications. And this is, in the grand scheme of things, this approach works well for now, where we have, 1 or 2,000 systems in the ground, but under the subwatershed's wastewater plan, as everybody knows, the end game here is we have 380,000 of these systems between residential and commercial in a county. So the end game is to upgrade all of these systems over a 30 to 50 year period. So as the program grows, there may be other models in terms of managing this, automating this, making it simpler for homeowners to get the O&M complete. And part of that strategy that we're looking at right now is the establishment of a countywide wastewater management district. So as recommended in the subwatershed's wastewater plan. So I know there was a couple of hands raised. I'm happy to pause for a moment here if anybody wants to, just to see if I have any more slides on this one. I do not. So if we want to stop here, this is, I know, a big, I'm sure interesting topic of discussion. So let's pause for a moment for any comments.
I have a question.
Sure.
It's Adriano at Direct Drainage. You're talking about having the homeowners upload to Acela. The installers do not have access to that program. As you know, we are holding the hands of most of our homeowners to get these O&M signed or re-signed. Is there any other method that we can use to submit the documents on their behalf, as well as homeowners that were catastrophic failure went through the SHIP program, so they are also not on Acela either?
So Jen, I'm gonna jump in first, but then feel free to correct me because you've been working closest with Bill on, and I think I failed to mention this before, but on Acela, there currently we're working to finalize a contract for phase 2, and phase 2 of the project is really going to focus on enforcement and automating, being able to send out these notifications, upload documents. I know, Jen, you've been working really hard with Bill on this. During the interim, Jen, I think we were thinking this is, like an email to you is kind of the appropriate course of action, right?
Yeah, so in the interim right now, we're looking to basically have service providers will be emailing me directly, and I will be moving things along from there. But ultimately, we're looking, as Ken said, there's a phase 2 of our EHIMS project, which develops our database here. And the big part of that is creating a public portal. And these standards changes that Ken is talking about would make the service providers the ones who we do want to be sending that information to us, as opposed to the property owner, which is how it is right now laid out in Article 19. We want to change that to make it so the service provider is the one that will be accessing that public portal, which we hope to have done in 6 to 12 months. And that would be the way that you would be sending us these O&M contracts. And we would be making sure that every homeowner has an active O&M contract using that database. So right now it's manual. The hope is that 6 months, hopefully closer to 6 months than 12 months, we will be automated and have a public portal that will be set up for service providers.
Okay, so for right now, until that's all set in place, we should just email you the updated contracts?
Yep, we're going to send out, so this in little note 2, number 2 here, we're going to send out a notification to all O&M providers summarizing what we're talking about right now, and asking that any renewals that you have made up until this point or moving forward, we'll give you an email to send that to. If you want to start sending them to me, to my email right now, you can do that. You would be expecting to get a letter from us in the near future once we're all done with these standards changes, asking you guys to do just that. So
Okay.
for now you can send them to me, and then eventually you'll probably get a notification letter from us giving you like a general email to send them to, but feel free to send to me for now.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jen.
No problem.
Any other thoughts? I thought at some point I saw another hand raised, but
Yes, I have a quick question. Tom O'Dwyer, Nugent Potter.
hi, Tom.
Hey, all right, you guys can hear me. This might have been answered, but and I don't know if this is you guys will have the answer for me, but I heard rumors that the tax on the grants has been formally abolished potentially as part of like a new IRS interpretation. Is any of that true, or is that just rumor?
I think I'll just jump in on that one. We have heard through secondary sources that there is language in either the infrastructure bill or the Build Back Better bill. It better be the infrastructure bill that would obviate the taxes levied on work done that's related to climate change and other environmental issues. So we're certainly hoping that that's the case, but it's still in the remains to be seen category.
Thank you. Thanks, Dorian.
All right, so if there's nothing else on this particular topic, I'm going to go to the next one related to the standards changes. And that is our proposed quality control sampling plan and program. Now, this will be implemented by the responsible management entity, which is Department of Health Services, Office of Ecology. And so again, purpose and need, why now? So Article 19 right now, the standards gives the RME the authority to collect QC samples, but it basically provides no definition of what the sampling protocols will be, nor how the data will be used. We want to be transparent about what the approach is going to be and how we're going to use the information. It's going to ensure that we have as we'll talk about in a minute, a consistent sampling methodology and protocol amongst different technologies and amongst making sure that our techniques, the responsible management entity sampling methodology, is consistent with the vendor recommendations and how they do things. It's going to provide a mechanism to identify sites where corrective actions may be warranted above and beyond some of the data that is currently being collected under the provisional use phase or now the general use phase. But we also, the one thing that we want to do is also create an independent, statistically significant data set for sites to serve as another proxy for overall performance of the technologies in the county. And at the end of the day, the purpose of this is to make sure that we're all successful and provide a mechanism to identify sites where we can get lessons learned on how to do things better, and then just to document that things are going better and things, right now, as Jen mentioned before, the technologies are performing great. So we want to make sure that continues, especially with the new requirement for new systems to be installed effective July 1st. We have another, as Julie mentioned before, $20 million of grant funding infused between the county, state. There's the CPF grants out east. So just in general, we expect more and more technologies to be going in the ground, and it's time to, as the program grows, to start laying this out and how we're going to collect QC samples. So two primary changes to the Article 19 standards to clarify the quality control program. One is to clarify and define the QC sampling procedures. The other thing that Article 19 does not mention at all right now is how the department can use the quality control samples. So it's also going to define the enforcement authority for Department of Health Services for QC samples. Now, any kind of enforcement related to quality control sampling would only be applicable to what we're referring to as quality control sampling approach 1 down here that I'm going to dive into right now. The proposed quality control sampling strategies is really a tag team approach with 2 separate kind of strategies making up the program. So the first strategy, sampling approach number 1, we're going to identify 20 systems throughout the county. Now, for those of you that are familiar with the provisional standard requirements to have provisional use status, this is going to look familiar, that the first 20 systems have to be sampled bi-monthly for a period of 2 years to get approval, and be under 19 to get approval. So that's on purpose. That, based on previous studies throughout the Northeast, has been demonstrated to be a statistically significant data set, and that's what we want. We want an independent, statistically driven data set collected by the department, in addition to what the manufacturers are doing. So under this QC sampling one approach, we're going to provide the data to the vendors and to the industry. However, we're not going to provide the location to the vendors, and that's on purpose. That's, again, this is the goal here, is to keep this kind of like an independent proxy of, you know, how are things doing on a countywide basis, without paying particular focus on one system, knowing that that system is being sampled. Now, this is coupled with sampling approach 2. Sampling approach 2 is going to include collecting random QC samples from random locations throughout the county. And the purpose of this sampling is to identify sites that may be above 19 milligrams per liter, and provide an opportunity for manufacturers, O&M providers, to go out and take a look and see maybe what's going on. And so under this sampling approach, the data and the location is going to be provided to the vendors. Again, they can take a peek and see what's going on. It may develop insights. Just one example, you know, one technology, I think, learned that during COVID, that maybe it makes sense to change this filter out twice, or clean this filter twice instead of once a year. And that's the type of thing we're looking to identify through this QC sampling approach too. Now, hypothetically, as those optimizations are made, those would trickle down to the rest of the industry, to the O&M market, and you'd see those corrective actions trickle down to the results of the the 20 systems being sampled by the department. So again, it's kind of this coupled approach. Two big things that I wanted to mention that'll be part of this. One, the standards we want to acknowledge, because it's not explicit in our standards right now, that, you know, if a site is, especially under QC sampling approach number 1, is not appropriate to be a good proxy for a technology's performance in a county, because the homeowner's doing something that they shouldn't be doing, there's some other extreme circumstance, we want to acknowledge that, and, you know, have the ability to take that site out of the QC sampling program or replace it with a site that's more applicable and appropriate. So just know that there's going to be that ability to make sure that there's not extenuating circumstances that are causing any concerns on the sampling side. And then 2, again, you know, we want to make sure that the sampling that we're doing, especially the methodology, we may be using different labs, that the results are consistent with sampling that the manufacturers and vendors and O&M providers are doing. So each quarter, we want to select 3 sites for each technology, be in contact with the vendors, manufacturers, meet them on the sites, both collect samples the same day, send them to our respective labs, and just confirm that we're doing things the same way and that the labs are reporting similar results. So that's going to be an important aspect of this program as well. 2 quick other notes. So we're also going to beef up and start incorporating commercial sampling, just to get a feel of what's going on in the commercial industry and performance of IA systems there. Now, this sampling approach, this QC sampling program, is going to be for technologies with provisional or general use approval that have at least 100 systems in the ground. Obviously, if a technology currently only has 20 systems in the ground, then we're saying, oh, we're going to collect 20 systems, samples from 20 systems under QC sampling approach. Number 1, that doesn't make sense, because the vendors are going to be sampling the same ones for their provisional use status. So that was a mouthful. And again, I'm gonna pause for any initial reactions, questions, comments, or thoughts on this proposed sampling strategy.
Nobody has a question. This is Pete with Hydro Action. I was just curious if there's any pushback against that, because other states aren't doing ongoing QC like this. So this is pretty innovative, and you know.
Yeah, Pete, so just some initial outreach that we did with folks like yourself and some of the other technologies. Everybody so far has been very supportive, because at the end of the day, again, the whole intent of this, we're all in this together, right? This program is successful if you guys are successful and the technologies are operating properly and successful. So everybody's been so far been very supportive of the concept, and kind of, you know, appreciative of the fact that we're doing this and collecting additional data that's ultimately going to help the technologies at the end of the day. So if there's no other thoughts or questions, and again, anybody feel free to raise their hand as we wrap up here. I just put the slide in here just to give some perspective on, you know, the volume of samples that that this is going to produce, and under Article 19 existing sampling that we do, as well as the QC program. And I mentioned before, so this QC program is going to be done by the department. The cost is not on the industry. The cost is going to be handled by us for the program, using our labs and our resources. But at the end of the day, with this new program, we're looking at over, with our existing sampling, over 1,500 samples a year that are going to be collected under the program by our office here, with support from the Office of Wastewater Management as well. And last but not least, just, you know, we heard some other suggested edits, either at the last meeting or after the last meeting. So there's some other standard revisions that are going to be teed up as part of this current revision. One, just acknowledging and clarifying that for verification purposes for pilot approvals, right now I think the language says it has to be done by NSF, and it has to meet this 245 standard, but there are other testing facilities that provide the certification. So we just want to clarify that it's okay to use those other testing facilities if they meet the requirements for NSF 245. So just clarifying that. That's come up once or twice already. The other couple loose ends, demo systems that went into the original demo programs. Right now, it's not explicit that we have a kind of like an end period for a technology under a demo program. So we just wanted to clarify that you know, technology may remain in a demo program for no more than 5 years, unless requested and receiving approval from the department to renew that and continue that demo program for that technology. And then just clarifying the timeline on submission for technology, individual technology manufacturer guidance documents and sampling commencement. Real quick, this is particular next steps related to the Article 19 standards. So we're requesting any feedback from, you know, that was a lot to digest. So from the folks on this in this meeting, from the industry, next Wednesday, if possible, get us comments on the you know, what you saw in here for the proposed standard revisions. We'll, you know, take those comments into consideration, revise our standards as appropriate, and finalize them hopefully in the last week of November for commissioner signature here at the health department, and then hoping to have them effective the first full week in December. So that being said, once they are effective, we're going to start sending out our homeowner and industry letters related to registrations and contracts, as Jen mentioned before, additional information in December as well. So again, just another, we're doing halfway decent on time here. Any other questions or comments that anybody thought about during the last few minutes there? So if not, I think we're about wrapped up, Walt.
Yep. Thank you, Ken. Much appreciated. You and your team did a great job putting this this PowerPoint together. As you mentioned, we're looking for comments. We take comments on a rolling basis. At any time, you saw some of this information before. It's up here again. Ken will post it and share it with the group on the Reclaim Our Water website. You have contact information for Julia, for Mac Ravina, as well as Jen Fries, Ed Lyons, Ken Ziegel, myself, John Sanjaner at everybody's disposal. You can easily find our information via any of these meeting lists if you don't have it already. Next slide, Ken. Just again, the next steps, this will all be posted. If you have comments, they'd be most useful by November 24th on the standards. Again, we'll take any comments on a rolling basis. On November 30th is the SIP state SOQ Proposer Conference. We'll have another meeting in February. Right now, we're shooting for quarterly. We can do them more or less frequently as needed. I just wanted to really thank everybody for taking the time to do this. I know it was a significant part of your day. We hope it was helpful and informative to you. I know that your feedback has been incredible to us. I've been with this department for over 33 years now. I've never seen anything like these last few years. In a few very short years, we've really changed the landscape quite literally, both in terms of the regulations and the programs, as well as the rubber meeting the road and changing the pollution that goes into our groundwater and our surface water. And there have been all sorts of stakeholders, the elected officials, the agencies, academia, Stony Brook, environmental and civic groups, the builders, but the most important group in our estimation is really the group that's on this call, the ones that are actually getting it done, because without getting it done, it wouldn't get done. And you're all doing a phenomenal job. Your feedback is valuable to us. We look forward to continuing to work with you in the future. If there's any final questions or comments, we'd be happy to entertain them. Otherwise, again, I'm happy to send you all on your business a few minutes early, and I wish everybody a very good Thanksgiving, and we'll all be talking soon. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all.